I thought was gonna be 10 grand a month as an income in the next 6 months turned out to be $100 a month for the next 3 years. We're pretty much about to get started on this first episode of Leadership Q&A. There's a lot to go through. You know, this is actually the first episode which will be going on YouTube. I chose to do this series for many different reasons, but one of the main reasons is, you know, over the last few years, I've kind of been realizing that within our industry, there's not much content online, particularly within YouTube, giving out real value on leadership, you know, mindset, how to really build a big community globally. With my experience, which I'll kind of be going through, I wanted to just give some value to people within the industry that maybe you're quite new, maybe you're stuck, you want some extra help. I've been in the industry for over 12 years. And I remember, you know, first starting out 12 years ago, one of the things that really helped me just learn how to build, learn how to work with people, learn how to deal with problems, learn how to overcome adversity was really YouTube. You know, I'll be honest, 12 years ago, there was quite a lot of content online from the individuals that were at the sort of level that I wanted to be at. And I just used to watch the same trainings over and over and over again. That really helped me early on in my journey. And this is kind of a series to just give back to those who are getting started in the industry, those who want to do big things, those who feel as though they're stuck. So that's what this is kind of for. You know, every single week we can kind of go through a different topic. Today's mainly going to be about how to break through that 6-figure yearly income barrier within our space. I think that's everybody's first goal, is to go from 0 to a 6-figure yearly income. So that's what we'll be discussing mainly today. But as it's the first episode, I do want to quickly share a bit about my journey in the industry, how I got involved, you know, some of the adversities that I had to face, and really how we got to where we are now. The size of the business that we have today, I couldn't even fathom or dream about 10 or 12 years ago when I was first starting out in the industry. If we go back down memory lane, I began in industry in 2014. I got introduced to the space by a gentleman that goes by the name of Hugo de Jesus. If you know Hugo, you know, maybe drop a 1 on Instagram Live and drop a 1 on Zoom. I've known this individual for like almost 17 years. We used to play football together growing up. I was actually on a football scholarship in America for 1 year. I came back for holiday to just work a job and make some income whilst I was in the UK. And he called me talking about an opportunity where he just came back from an event and there was a guy on stage talking about retiring his parents and, you know, making all this money. And to be honest, I had no idea what he was talking about. I was so pumped up by the energy, you know, and I decided to come to, you know, my first event in 2014. It was a company called ACN. At the time, I didn't really understand the concept, but I just saw a bunch of young, successful looking individuals in a room. And I'll be honest, I had never been in that type of environment before. Although I didn't really understand the concept, I said, look, whatever this is, whatever's going on, I want some part of it. I'm gonna get involved. I remember setting a goal that within the first 6 months of me joining this platform, I wanna go and make $10,000 a month. That was my first goal within the first 6 months. And I actually gave up my scholarship. I had a full scholarship in America where I was playing in Oklahoma, but I was that convicted that this was gonna be big that I said, you know what? I believe this is worth more than my actual scholarship. So long story short, we all know just because you set a goal, it doesn't mean that goal is gonna become real. What I thought was gonna be 10 grand a month as an income in the next 6 months turned out to be $100 a month for the next 3 years. So talk about, you know, dreams and hopes being crushed. I had to face reality. I gave up my scholarship for what I thought was gonna be something big. And it ended up financially being a terrible situation. But what I learned in those 3 years, honestly, is what made me into the leader that I am today. I had to grow through the adversities, the struggles. Just we'll save that for another live, what my first 3 years experience was. But it was hell. It was hard. It was tough. And eventually I gave up. I gave up on the industry. I became very negative. You know, I said, this is a joke. This is a scam, as you'd call it. I was promised hopes and big dreams, and $100 a month for all the work I put in. I just felt very annoyed at the industry. So I gave up on the industry. I went back to a 9-to-5 job. I was working in recruitment as a consultant. And this was in 2017. So 2014 to 2017, you know, did those 3 years. I gave up on the industry. And to be honest, the job I was in was barely allowing me to make enough money to even live for myself, let alone look after anyone else. And I ended up getting in the wrong crowd. You know, for those that know my story, you guys know I went to prison, but a lot of you guys don't know what I went to prison for. But I was basically reselling London travel cards in UK. So if you're in the UK and you want to get on a bus or train, you know you'd need some sort of ticket or an Oyster card. So I used to resell those in 2017, and obviously it's not legal to be reselling them to the public at a cheaper price. So that's what I was basically doing for about 7-8 months in 2017. It was a little side hustle. To be honest, it wasn't making much, but it was, you know, extra money on a weekend. And long story short, the main individual involved, you know, he got caught, and that whole operation pretty much stopped. So I thought nothing of this situation, because after it stopped, it was just like, okay, cool. That system is now done. Fast forward to 2018, I get reintroduced to the industry of network marketing, but through Forex. And before this, I'd never heard of Forex in my life. I really fell in love with the idea that the end user, which is the customer, can learn how to make money. And you as an affiliate or network marketer can also make money from building a business. The concept made a lot of sense business-wise, that both parties can actually make money in the system. So I began to launch that system in 2018. After 4 months, I reached an income that allowed me to quit my recruitment job. I was pretty much doing okay relative to what that was in 2018. About 9 months later, I get a knock on the door from the boys in blue. For you guys that know what that is, it was basically for what happened in 2017. This was in, end of 2018. And so long story short, I go to trial, and this whole process takes like a whole year and a half going back and forth. And in 2020, I get sentenced to prison. So I did 8 months inside prison. I came out late 2020 and my whole business collapsed. I had probably, 300-400 active customers at the time. Things were going well. I was starting to build my name on social media. So it was a very weird time for me, I'll be honest, because that is the last place that I'd ever think that I'd find myself. And when I came out, I just made the decision that, look, I'm just gonna rebuild the whole thing over again. I'm gonna document the whole process. I'm gonna try and show everyone that, look, it doesn't matter what your past is, it doesn't matter what you go through, you can make it happen. And at this point, before going to prison, I had never made more than $2,000 a month inside the industry. Things weren't all that great, but I decided to document the whole process. So long story short, 6 months later, things in the business completely explode. And again, for compliance, I'm sharing my story just to share my story. This is not to induce anyone with numbers or anything like that. This is just me sharing my real life story. So after coming out, 6 months later, I go from 0 to over $10,000 a month in the same business, right? I rejoined the same business and built again from scratch. Things began to completely explode. Since then, like honestly, every single year, my business, my income, my group, my leadership, it just kept on growing since 2021. And now we're in 2026. 2022 was multiple 6 figures. 2023 was close to $500,000. 2024 was my first $1 million year. 2025 was again another $1 million year. And 2026, God willing, multiple millions. And again, I don't share that for any other reason but to just share my story of what I gone through in the industry and what is possible within this space. And I think it's important that I kind of start with that because I do have a very unique perspective on the industry because I've been on both sides. I know what it is to struggle. My first 3 years, $100 a month. Most people are doing a lot more than that in their first 3 years. So I know what it feels like to struggle for so long in the industry. I know why I was struggling, right? I know what I was doing wrong and what I changed. And I know what it feels like to lose everything and then have to build it all up again. Again, one of the things that really helped me early on in my journey was YouTube. At the time, a lot of the top leaders that were making serious income, they would post loads of training videos online, just giving tips on mindset, how to deal with people, how to build the business, how to overcome adversity. All of the things that I was struggling with in the beginning, I used to just literally consume content on YouTube every single day. I kind of realized that for some reason, there's not really much content online on YouTube today, literally generically, where people can just get access and just learn. And even if you're not in the industry of network marketing or affiliate marketing, a lot of the concepts that I speak about and train on could be used in any business endeavor, because any business that you do that involves people, you're going to have to learn how to lead. You're going to have to learn how to deal with people. You're going to have to learn how to handle adversity, right? So whatever industry you're working in, hopefully this video series can help you in some way, even if it's just a little nugget or two that you can use to implement, even if it's just a mindset perspective or a mindset shift. That's what this series is for. And the reason why I chose to do it in a Q&A style is because I believe this is one of the most effective ways to do a training, because you get down to the root of a specific issue. And usually a question that somebody asks is the same problem that most people are facing. So instead of just doing a training, quite recently, a lot of my training styles have been in the form of a Q&A, right? So we're gonna get into it. We're gonna have a bit of fun with this. We're gonna really see within the community. For those that are on YouTube or Instagram, I'm actually on Zoom, streaming to my community. And then what we're basically gonna do, we're gonna get into a Q&A where the topic is how to break through that 6-figure barrier. For me, it took me 6 years. 6 years in the industry, pretty much struggling before I had my breakthrough. And I think that's a very, very important mark to break through. I think once you're able to do that, if you play your cards right, you could really see great results long-term in the industry. So let's kick this Q&A off. There's almost 200 people on here. Good for the first call, but we're gonna fire away. So if any of you have questions, okay, the questions are already coming through, but yeah, we're gonna keep the questions coming in. I'm gonna answer as much as I can. We'll do it one by one. Just a disclaimer, as I'm answering these questions, nothing I say is right or wrong, right? This is my perspective from my experience, something that I've seen that's worked for me for many, many years, and something I've taught to many people and has also worked well. Whatever system or leadership that you're following, I always recommend you stick to that blueprint. And if I mention anything that maybe contradicts, what you've been taught, just stick to whatever you've been taught and try and take just little bits of gems, that you can add into your game or into your system to make a difference. But I think that's very, very important to put that out there as a disclaimer. Okay, so first question from Archie. So what were the biggest turning points that took you from average results to exceptional results? Good question. There are a lot of things, I'll be honest. The biggest thing, and I said this on our last retreat, we did a little podcast. The biggest turning point was when I realized I couldn't listen to my own advice if I don't even have the results that I want. I mean, if you're in the industry, you probably always hear this everywhere. Don't take advice from people you don't want to trade places with, or don't take advice from people who don't have the results that you want. And we always used to hear this until, I can't remember who it was, but I was at an event and that statement was said, don't take advice from people you don't want to trade places with. But that includes yourself. If you're in a situation or position that you don't want to be, if you're not where you want to be in life, then your ideas, your perspectives, your way of seeing things, your way of doing things, obviously put you in that position. So honestly, it sounds so simple, but it was the first time I heard it put that way. And this was when I just came out of prison. The shift that I made was, instead of just listening to my own ideas on what I think works, my own perspectives, my own systems, I started studying the people that had the biggest results. Whether you like it or not, it is an ego thing to not want to follow somebody that clearly has results. I didn't know it was an ego thing at the time, but it clearly was. It was something that was really holding me back. I felt as though I don't need help, I don't need support. I could do it on my own, I could figure it out on my own. But when I understood that I don't even know what I'm doing, I don't have the results, I began to really study the greats in the industry, what they were doing that worked, that was different from what everybody else was doing, and what were some of those things that I could adopt. And I'll study everyone like really in depth. I'll try and get a conversation with these individuals. I'll try and ask smart questions to really understand the mindset behind what is different from someone who's making millions in the industry and what is different from somebody who's stuck. And what I realized was the people that had the results, they weren't necessarily smarter, they weren't more skilled, they weren't better. It wasn't even a case where they worked harder. They just had access to information that I didn't have, or maybe I had access to that information, but I wasn't using it in a proper way. And once I made that transition from, look, Bells, you're basically struggling, you're broke, you can't take advice from yourself, find the people who have results that you want, study them, get close enough to study them, 10x the work ethic. In return, within time, you should see similar or even greater results. And I take that philosophy in every area of my life, wherever it's health, fitness, spirituality, relationships. If I'm stuck somewhere, I'm always looking for the person or the people that have the results. So that was probably the biggest mindset shift that took me from struggling to it felt like it was overnight, but things in 2020, things really just changed within 6 months. I hope that answers your question. This is from Cherish. What advice would you have for people who are scared to take the first or next step in business? Okay, let me make sure I'm understanding this. I'm going to assume that you're scared to take the next step, or why most people are scared to take the next step. Most people are scared to take the next step, through my experience, because they don't believe that if they do the necessary work, they don't really believe that they're going to get the results. This is how I felt for a very long time, and this is how a lot of people feel. And it's logically, it makes sense. If you sacrifice, put in the hours, if you're going through all the pain, the suffering that it takes to become successful as an entrepreneur, if you're putting all that on the line, but you don't think that it's going to work for you, in your mind, why would you waste your time sacrificing all these things if you don't even believe it's going to work? And honestly, I used to think people were just lazy. You can see that there's an opportunity. Why don't you just put in a work? This is what I used to think, that people are just lazy. But after working very, very closely with people over the years, I realized some people are lazy, but most people's problems is not that they're lazy. They just don't believe that it's going to work for them, right? That's the main issue. So in a formula that I adopted in terms of not being scared to take the first step is I made a commitment to take the necessary action regardless of the results. Because remember, the biggest reason why people don't take the action is because they don't believe they're going to get the results. So I made a commitment a long time ago that I don't care how long it's going to take. I don't care what the results are going to look like. I'm not committed to the results. I'm committed to the action. And what allowed me to logically understand that and go through with it is I knew that if I take the necessary action over and over and over again, it is impossible for my skills not to improve. Whether that is improving on selling, improving in trading, improving in presenting, leadership, training, whatever it was, closing, handling objections, whatever it was, if I kept on taking actions, eventually my skills will improve. Even if the results wasn't showing it yet, my skills would improve. It's just logic. If I'm improving my skills because I'm taking action, eventually the results will show. Again, this is just simple logic. If I keep doing something long enough, I'm going to get better at doing it. If I get better at doing something, my results are going to get better. My results are going to show up. And if my results are going to show up, I'm going to become more confident. My belief is going to grow. So for me, if I'm doing something new that I'm not good at or I'm not confident in, I would always commit myself to taking the action. And I knew that through the action, the skills would develop. And if my skills develop, the results will show. And if the results show, my confidence will grow. So it's just a never-ending cycle. And I think you can't really lose if you commit to action, because it doesn't matter how you feel, you've committed to action. It doesn't matter if you're confident or not, you've committed to action. It doesn't matter if the results are not showing, you've committed to action. It doesn't matter if things are not working or you're even on a decline, you're committed to action. So for me, when it comes to belief, that is the best way to ensure that you're actually doing the work and also working on your belief as well. Okay, what question should I ask myself about my leadership or business because I feel like I'm stuck, but I don't know where the issue is? Well, this was my story for 3 years, literally. Well, not even 3 years. This was my story for basically 6 years. 6 years, I would say that I was stuck. The missing key is not what question should I ask myself, is what question should I ask my coach or mentor? That's the difference. Because look, you can't save yourself. You can't take yourself to somewhere that you've never been before, right? It's the honest truth. You can't, if you've never been somewhere, you don't know how to go there, you can't really ask yourself the question because you don't even have the answer. So for me, instead of saying what question should I ask myself, is what questions should I ask the people or the person who has the results I want within that particular field I'm asking a question in. That's the way I'll look at it. And again, it goes back to the first question. That is the major shift that I made in 2020 when I came out of prison, was I'm going to stop asking myself the question and I'm going to ask the people who actually have the tangible results that I'm looking for. It got to the point where I wanted the results so bad, couldn't care less about my ego. I would get advice from people I didn't even like. It got to that point. When you can start getting advice from people that you don't even like because they have the results you want, you know you've mastered the side of you where your pride and your ego is going to get the better of you. Still do that too today. I would get advice from people who are younger than me, less experienced than me. If they have the results that I'm looking for, those are the people I'm going to go to advice on a particular topic. Okay. What advice would you give to someone who's struggling with their trading journey? I mean, there's tons of educators, there's tons of systems within the trading space. One thing I'll say about trading, and again, this isn't a live about trading, but I'm obviously in the trading space. Any skill that is worth learning is going to take a lot longer than you expect. It's going to be harder than you think it is. And it's going to cost you more money than you think it is. I have this mindset with anything new I go into. And I think once you've done something once successfully, you would know what I'm talking about. If you've built a successful business, or if you was once not in shape and now you've got yourself in shape, you would know that when you initially set the goal, put a game plan out, you had this idea that this was going to be smooth. But if you've actually built a successful business or you've done anything worth doing, you would know that it's going to take longer than you expect, it's going to be harder than you expect, and it's going to cost you more money than you expect. So I think the first thing, if you're struggling, that's just part of the journey, you know. And unfortunately, on social media, especially within trading, a lot of things get portrayed as if you can just come in and you're going to get rich, or come in and see great results right away. And unfortunately, that's not the truth. Just like my journey in network marketing, for most people that are successful in trading, they will tell you trading is probably the hardest skill on the planet to learn. And it most likely will take you several years before you master it. So unless you've been in the game for several years and you've literally been putting in your hours on a day-to-day basis, you're basically just still in your process. I hope that answers the trading question. What separates a recruiter who brings in 5 people a month from one who brings in 20 personally and not by duplication? I don't really understand that last part, but I'm gonna answer the first part. What separates a recruiter who brings in 5 people a month from someone who brings in 20? So again, I've been on both sides. There were times where 10 people in a month was a one-hit wonder. There was a time where that was a big deal prior to, I would say, 2022. And then my highest month was 120 directs in a single month. So I've been on both sides of the spectrum. I would say the biggest difference is social media. That is literally the biggest difference, in my opinion. Through my own experience and through a lot of people in the community who do have big numbers every single month in terms of personal recruits, it's gonna be social media. When I made a shift and opened up a TikTok, I'll tell you a little story about how I began in TikTok, because I was one of the people that I still get cringed out by a lot of things. But in 2022, I never had a TikTok page. And I swore that I would never make a TikTok, because my perspective of TikTok was you're just dancing and making stupid videos. And I was like, look, I'm a grown man. You're not finding me on TikTok trying to do dancing or trending videos, right? That was my perspective on TikTok. And I was so against it up until the point where I think it must have been 2022. There was a young lady by the name of Claudia from Poland. Shout out to Claudia. I would say put 7s in the chat, but you're gonna erase the questions, so don't put no 7s in the chat. But if you're on Instagram, maybe drop some 7s if you know who Claudia is. Extremely successful individual within our industry. And at this time, when I first met her, she was making a couple thousand a month. And she hit a pretty decent milestone in the platform that we were previously in. And I remember reaching out to her and I was like, how did you hit it so quick? Me telling you this story is kind of an example and proof of what my mindset is. If I see somebody that has results, I'm going to figure out how they did it. So this story is literally an example. So at the time, she said her and her top leader recruited 20 people in a single week to close her rank, like 20 each. And I was like, how? Like for me at the time, doing like 5 to 10 in a month was again a big deal. And they both pulled in 20 to 30 each in a single week. And that's when she began to tell me about TikTok. And I was like, I like the results, but I don't want to go on TikTok, okay? But I just said, you know what, let me actually check it out. So I went on her page, on a TikTok page, and I'll be honest, like I couldn't imagine me making the same videos that she was making, because I was completely cringed out. But I said, you know what, definitely like the results that she has. So let me get myself outside of my comfort zone. So this is what I did. She was in Cyprus at the time. And bearing in mind, we didn't really know each other like that. We're in the same company. We've helped each other out a few times, but we don't necessarily work closely together. But I was so adamant that I wanted to really learn this TikTok thing and really get results fast, that I said, look, what if I take a flight to Cyprus? Let me know whatever Airbnb or hotel your team's staying in. I'll stay in one close by. And for 1 week, you teach me everything you know about TikTok, and I'll teach you everything I know about leadership and duplication. Because at the time, I had more experience than her in the industry, but she was kicking off on TikTok. And she must have thought I was joking, right? But she said, yeah, sure, thinking I'm joking. And then 15 minutes later, I send a flight confirmation of my flight to Cyprus. So I actually flew to Cyprus for 1 week. And for those, I think a lot of the videos might be deleted now, but if you scroll all the way down to the bottom of my TikTok, you'll see the videos in Cyprus. Like, if I go back, I still cringe today that she actually made me shoot those videos, right? So I sat down with her for a whole week. we went through different TikTok ideas, and she was helping me film content. And it's like, I really want you guys to go on. I hope the videos are still there, because if you see it, like, you'll know what I'm talking about. So for 90 days, I didn't see any results, right, from TikTok. But I was posting 3 times a day on TikTok for about 60 to 90 days. And eventually I had my first viral video. And then like the influx of leads just started coming through. And I had never experienced that before. And then after the first viral video went, again, the following week, another video went viral, and then the rest is history. My TikTok actually has more followers than my Instagram. So TikTok's a great platform to generate leads and to get customers. And I'll say Instagram's more, it works better for your overall branding. It's like Instagram's like your CV, but TikTok is where you can get most customers. So I'll say the main difference between those who are doing 5 a month or 20 a month or more is definitely gonna be social media, okay? What advice would you give to someone who's blown their account multiple times? Okay, look, this is a funny one, right? Because in my opinion, you shouldn't ever blow your account. We're talking about trading. That's in my opinion. I've rarely blown accounts in the past, maybe only in the first couple of years. But once I really understood what trading was, I've personally never blown an account. If you're blowing an account, you're not trading, you're gambling. And I'll give you an example. If you're risking anywhere between 1 to 5%, and again, this is not financial advice, this is just me giving you an example of risk. But if you're risking 1 to 5% maximum, you would have to lose more than 100 trades in a row for you to lose your money. Which even if you tried to do that, that's impossible. Like if you sit there and try to take 100 trades and attempt to lose all of them, it's impossible to do. And if you're risking 5% at the top end, you would need to lose 20 trades in a row for you to blow your capital. Again, losing 20 trades in a row is super hard to do. So if you just stuck to that concept that you're not going to risk more than 5% on a trade, and the reason why I say 5%, that's actually very, very high. But I understand that there are people that are trading with $100, $200. So 1%, there's no point in trading, right? So that's the only reason why I'm saying 5%. But for people that have over 10 grand in a trading account, like 1 to 2%, again, it's not financial advice, but that's just something that I would say is sensible, right? So if you're following that, you shouldn't be blowing any accounts. Don't give up, just trade with proper risk management. And that would allow you to learn the skill and stay in a game for a lot longer without blowing all your money, okay? Because you are gonna take a lot of L's in the beginning. There's gonna be a lot of lessons. So you need the time and the experience. But if you're blowing your account, you're not giving yourself enough time to learn. On leadership, how can you get your team to stay motivated and keep pushing, but without making you be a micromanager or pushover and making your team hate you? That's a very good question. I'll read it again. Right, I'll read that again because it's a good question. In leadership, how can you get your team to stay motivated and keep pushing, but without making you be a micromanager or a pushover and making your team hate you? Ruby, it sounds like you've experienced what a lot of us experience on our journey. Here's one thing I would say. I don't try and motivate people. I learned that the hard way. My first few years in the industry, I almost died trying to push and motivate people. Like I literally almost lost my hair in a process trying to motivate people. And the quote, you can drag a horse to the water, but you can't make it drink it, right? I don't know if that's the right way to say it, but I'm sure you guys have heard that before. And again, this is my philosophy. Different leaders have a different philosophy. But for me, I never tried to motivate people at all. I understand that you can't teach a duck how to fly. So you got to look for eagles and you work with the eagles and you teach them how to operate on your system. Okay. So with that being said, I'll share with you the 4 major things that I look for in somebody that I think has potential to do well. The people who do not display these 4 things, I do not waste too much energy with those individuals. Because again, it's not my job to make someone successful. No one helped or forced me to want to become successful. The biggest thing that people done is that they gave me a blueprint. They gave me access to information. They gave me advice when I needed it. They gave me some encouragement. But when it came to waking up and doing the work and grinding and reading and staying up late and making the sacrifices and spending money on this, traveling here, traveling there, no one told me to do that. And anyone that you're working with that's going to become successful, if you feel as though you have to motivate them to do those things, you're working with ducks, and ducks will never fly. Unfortunately, most people are not going to become successful in any industry, let alone trading or network marketing or affiliate marketing. Most people aren't going to become successful, period, because most people don't have the right mindset. Okay? So how I look at it is my job to spot who has potential and help bring that potential out of them. Okay? It's my job to spot the potential and help bring that potential out. But if I don't know what I'm looking for, if I don't know what potential looks like, then I'm already stuck. So number 1, right, and this probably goes in order, whoever I'm looking to work with on a very close level, that person needs to have a strong desire to want to win. You can't teach that. You can't teach desire. You can't teach, somebody being hungry. When I first joined the industry, I gave up my scholarship after one event because I saw a vision. I saw a way for me to finally retire my mom. And I said, I don't care how many kids' dreams this football scholarship is. It's going to be very, very difficult for me to make it as a professional football player. But I've just witnessed an opportunity where I can make the same amount of money that you can make in football. I could do it right here, and it's all based on my work ethic. So I gave up my scholarship. You can't motivate someone to make decisions like that. Someone either has it in them or they don't. And at the end, I'll piggyback to show you what you do with people that don't have it at that moment. You don't just leave them out. I'll explain what I do. So number 1, someone has to have hunger. They need a burning desire. They need to want it. Number 2, the person needs to be coachable. When you give them a game plan, or when there's a training on, they're always on the training. They're always taking notes. They're always listening. If there's a game plan that needs to be executed, they're always the first to execute. There's no ifs, no buts, and no babies. Okay? So coachability is number 2. Number 3 is work ethic. They're not scared to put in the work. They're not scared to make the sacrifices. They're not scared to travel. They're not scared to do the late nights. They've got work ethic, which again, I don't think you can teach someone. So number 1 is hunger. And how I know somebody is hungry, when I show someone the compensation plan and I say, look, in our compensation plan, this is what you can make. And they look at the number 10 grand a month and their eyes go wide like this, and they're like, okay, they're locked in. There's a certain look that somebody has when they see the numbers of what's possible, and they're just like, I need to lock in. Like, you can see somebody's hungry. They want it. They're excited about it. Number 2, they're coachable. They're ready, to follow whatever system. Number 3, they're going to put in the work. They show up. And number 4, in the beginning, you probably won't see this a lot. So I'll say this is like a bonus. But for people that I work with today, for me, this is definitely a requirement because I'm trying to take people from 10 grand a month income to 100,000 a month. So the number 4 is very important for that type of bracket. And that person has to want to grow as an individual. They have to want to read. They have to want to soak up some sort of content that's going to help their mindset, going to develop their skill. They have to want to become a better person. If somebody wants to come in and just make money, no problem, but they're only going to go so far. And even if they hit a lick because of timing, positioning, the right wave, they won't keep it for long. Again, I have a unique perspective because I've been in the industry for 12 years. I've seen people win at a high level, and I've seen people lose it just as fast as they've built it because they never worked on themselves. It was just about, how can I make more money? They never wanted to grow and develop. And I've seen very few people actually win at a high level and consistently win year after year at a very, very high level. That's not easy to do. And the difference between those people is they were growing as their income was growing. So number 4 is that individual, they have to have a hunger to want to grow, not just their money, but themselves as an individual. And I think in the early years, that was what I was so big on. My first 3 years, again, I was making $100 a month, which is nothing. But I was reading every day. I was watching YouTube videos every day. I was sleeping to self-development audios in my pillow. I had a pillow speaker. Like, I was so like infatuated with me growing as an individual. Okay. So number 1, they got to have a hunger to want to make an above average income. They got to see 10 grand a month, and that's got to get them excited, be coachable to follow a game plan. They got to want to work hard, and they have to want to grow. If somebody has those 4 things, I don't care if they don't have the results at the moment. This is very, very important to distinguish, because just because somebody has results doesn't make them a leader. And just because somebody doesn't have results doesn't mean they're not a leader. It's very, very important to distinguish the two. There's a difference between somebody who brings in numbers or somebody who's good at selling, somebody who can create momentum, and there's a difference between somebody who's a leader. So I look for those 4 things in individuals, and if I see that, I'm gonna really home in and work with that person. So I hope that answers your question, because working with the right people, you're not gonna come across as pushy because the person's coachable. You're not gonna come across as and again, this is a different topic, so we can probably go deeper into the micromanaging thing, probably on another call, because I have a lot to say about the concept of micromanaging and whatnot. All right, but we can definitely go into that on another call. All right, this is the last couple of questions. How do you stay motivated and focused during seasons where you're facing multiple challenges at once? Right, that's a good question. The reason why I'm taking some time to think about this one, because I'm trying to go back to 2019 when I got arrested. I was building a network marketing business. I was almost 5K a month position. I had a big organization. I was basically going to court every single day whilst building my business. And like, nobody knew what I was going through. So for 9 months, I'm going to court every single day from 9 to 4. And I'm trying to build my business afterwards, like not knowing if I'm going to prison or not. So like, for me personally, that whole year and a half that process took, hands down, was the most challenging period in my career. So I'm really trying to go back in time to try and remember like what the mindset was. I'll be honest. So that's a very good question. I won't lie. It's a very good question. So when it comes to leadership, what I've always read and believed in is leaders eat last. I've always believed in your team comes first. Anytime I'm going through a hardship, anytime I'm going through personal challenges, the honest truth is I'm not really thinking much about my personal issues. Or yes, I'm thinking about it, but in terms of my day-to-day actions, at the time when I was going to court every single day, when I didn't know whether I was going to prison or not, I was still showing up and nobody knew. But my mindset was, regardless of what I'm going through, I felt as though my community needed me in that period. This is the honest truth. Like, I'm really trying to not just give you, a nonsense answer. I'm really trying to go back to what my mindset was at the time, because it was a very, very difficult period. But my mindset was, regardless of what I'm going through, my group need my support. What allowed me to get that engaged into my community is really understanding the reasons why people joined the business and understanding the sacrifices that they made. I'll give you an example. Anyone that I would work with on a one-to-one basis, I'd want to find out what their personal situation is, why they're joining the business, what are some of their pain points, what are some of their goals, what are some of their aspirations. And I would say I almost got not in a bad way, but I almost got emotionally attached to that person's goals, if that makes sense. Because it's not just, oh, this person wants to make money. Like, you understand maybe their personal situation. You understand what's happening at home. You understand why they need this to work. So you understand it on a deeper level, to the point where when I was going through my hardships, it was like, but so-and-so also has this to deal with, if that makes sense. So-and-so is going through this. So-and-so has bills to pay. So-and-so has debt to clear off. I'm going through a challenging period, but as the leader in my organization, everyone's got their own problems to deal with. And I'm in a position where I can help on some sort of level to influence, what's happening in the community to help people reach their goals. But if I just kind of said, I'm just going to focus on my own problems, then it's like the whole operation is basically done. I can answer that question in another way, but when you ask that question, the first thing that came to mind is when I was going on trial, when I was about to go to prison and I was fighting my case, I still had the organization to run. I still had people I needed to help. Business still needs to be taken care of. And the thing that motivated me was the understanding that all these people that I'm supposed to be leading, they all have their personal problems. They all have their personal issues. And they're quote unquote relying on me to make certain moves to keep things moving, right? So I hope that answers your question. But there's a ton of other questions to get answered. And unfortunately, we have ran out of time, but it's been a pleasure. Next week, we'll have more time to answer a lot more questions, as I won't be doing such a long introduction. For those that are wondering, this is a series. It will be on YouTube, so you'll be able to go back and watch the recording. So I hope that helped. God bless you all, and I'll see you guys on the next episode.